Happened to me in 2015 on New Year's Day at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. Walking outside of Denny's with friends getting ready to hit the highway, my buddy asked me to drive home. I said no problem. I told them I needed to run back inside and use the restroom. When I came back to get into driver's seat, I looked back and told everyone to get their seatbelts on before we leave. While they were strapping in, I looked up the road and saw a car about 400 meters away. It looked strange, like all of a sudden it was accelerating at us. I said, "What the hell is guy doing?" Before we knew it, the car was flying at us into the parking lot. The last thought in my mind was, this is how it ends. And I felt the vehicle hit us and smash into our face and my teeth and body get smashed. I thought I knocked out. The next thing I knew, I looked at my body, and I was standing outside of the car looking at the vehicle that seemed to hit us. It somehow projected straight over us, hit the Denny's sign, and fell onto car in the parking spot next to us. It was like we quantum shifted out of some reality. I looked to my friends to see if they were all right. Everyone was. One of the guys said, "Dude, we just died and quantum shifted. That's how real it was that we got hit." Later the officers came to do the report. Everyone lived, including the drunk driver who fell asleep. The officer said, "How did the car fly over you guys?" "We didn't know." Another officer said, "This looks like the set of a Hollywood movie." There were a set of tracks through the grass in parking lot where we were directly at the driver's side door within 1 foot of car. How it didn't hit us is a total mystery. The part that freaks me out is that, had I not gone to the restroom, would that have happened? I died in late 2015. I was given a second chance. I've never used Reddit before, but a friend of mine was talking to me about the glitch in the Matrix subreddit, so I decided to share my story here, since I don't have any explanation for it almost 3 years later. Rewind back to September 2015, I was a freshman who had just entered high school 2 weeks prior. Already school was weighing down on me, and I'd been continuing a habit I had of going on walks to clear my mind. On this day, I'd been walking around a pond near my house. There's a trail that goes around the pond, and then the trail leads up to a set of abandoned train tracks on the other side, which sit about 15 feet above the path and pond below. After walking the circle, I was crossing the train tracks when I decided I wanted some ice cream. The fastest way to get to the ice cream shop was to take the path below the train tracks, but there isn't any way to cross the pond without going all the way back around, and being 14 years old, I decided that I could just jump from the tracks onto the path below and keep walking. Looking down from above, it didn't seem to be that far of a jump, so that's what I did. The next thing I remember after that was being half-conscious in an ambulance. Everything was extremely blurry and the paramedics sounded slightly panicked. I wasn't able to move either of my legs, so I think they were both broken. This scene continued on for a few minutes, until we arrived at the hospital and I was wheeled into the emergency room on a stretcher. I only had a few minutes in emergency before I eventually lost all consciousness, and that was the last thing I saw. After I'd been unconscious for what felt like about an hour, I opened my eyes and I was on the ground. I'd just hit the ground after jumping, but this time I was fully conscious. I hadn't noticed this before I jumped, but there had been a car parked watching me. I think they thought I was attempting suicide, but it probably looked that way, and the people in it had jumped out and called an ambulance for me. The ambulance ride had been the exact same as it was the first time, and I was put into the same emergency room that I had died in before. The only difference between the two events were that I was fully conscious this time, and my injuries were much more minor. I was discharged from the hospital the same night, with only stitches in my lip, a slightly fractured jaw and a mild concussion. For a while after this, I assumed that the first scenario had just been a weirdly coincidental dream that I'd had while I was unconscious, so I didn't consider it anything abnormal. It wasn't until a few weeks after, When my mom told me that the people who had helped me said that I had been conscious the entire time, I hadn't been knocked out after hitting the ground or anything. So, that entire scenario managed to happen in the few seconds it took for me to hit the ground, while I was still conscious. Anyways, I'm not very good at describing things, especially with how blurry this day was now that it was years ago. But, I'm 17 now, and I still have no way to explain what happened that day, other than I died, and was given a second chance.